Hello, this is Lance with Verivest, and today I have with me Bryan Pritchard with Tricap Residential. How you doing, Bryan?
I'm doing great today, Lance. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us. So, why don't you just share with us a little bit about how you ended up getting involved in, commercial real estate? So, what got you into this whole real estate game, and how did you decide,
Sure.
start
Yeah,
your own firm?
yeah, no problem at all. My origin story, for lack of a better expression, is for whatever reason, I've always known what I wanted to do, and that was to have a real estate company. I kind of learned that, or it dawned upon me and when I was in high school, actually. And so I set out to do exactly that. I went to University of Michigan. I became an engineer. That definitely wasn't my career path. I worked for a construction company and a development firm with really the intent of then starting my own firm at some point. And in 2007, I did exactly that. I set out and started Tricap.
Oh, that's great. So for you guys, how do you go about sourcing your opportunities? Like, what is your acquisition strategy?
We do a lot of digging to hopefully do a little bit of finding and acquiring. So for us, we're a process-oriented firm. As that applies to the acquisitions effort, we have an opportunity funnel that we utilize, which means we have a geographic focus that's Midwest and Southeast. We're looking at as many deals that we can that fit into our box, and our box being middle market value add. Today, that means we're generally buying 70s and 80s vintage apartments, spending a considerable amount of money on common area and interior unit renovations, and then generally holding them for the long term. We're a yield shop, not an IRR shop. So our opportunity funnel looks like put a bunch of deals into the top, start to screen for the things that we like to see, which are we like to see, we don't like to be in truly rural areas, so we like to see some population density, and we like to see minimum median income thresholds, and we also do some pretty targeted customer analysis for the different markets that we're in. So we like to see a high concentration of our target customers. If we get past that, then we'll start moving into some more detailed underwriting, letter of intent, and then hopefully purchase agreement and acquisition.
Got it. So yeah, you mentioned kind of the broad areas that you do business in, but are there certain key markets that you really like over others? And if so, kind of why, or, and I suppose that's kind of depends upon the time, but I mean, what are those kind of key markets that you really like?
Sure. We're in 7 states today. And again, those are mostly Midwest and a few in the Southeast. Our Southeast states are Alabama and Tennessee. Our target markets are typically not primary markets. They're generally secondary and tertiary. And again, that's really a function of the kind of investments that we do. We're looking for middle market housing that can produce a yield. And what we find in some of those primary markets is that cap rates are so low and the purchase prices are so high that we just can't generate yield from the asset, and it's really hard to create value through renovation. So we've typically avoided of those markets.
Got it. So I mean, and for you as as an active investor, and obviously been in the real estate game a long time. Do you sort of have this overarching investment philosophy, or just this way that you kind of look at things that's more philosophical in nature, that how you kind of approach it?
Sure. It's I would say we as a firm, we're really operators, and so when we're looking at deals, we're looking at something that we can buy and we can apply our skill set. And our skill set is understanding how to do active renovations, meaning renovate something that is currently occupied, and how to manage things efficiently and effectively at the site level. So those are the skill sets that we try to apply. What we are not is we're really not capital managers or asset managers or fund managers. So it's not like we're going out and raising a bunch of money and then saying, "Oh my God, we don't really know how to operate apartments." It's kind of backwards for us. We find an apartment to operate, and then we go raise capital to fund those deals.
Sure. So when you say like the renovation, are you talking about like where a tenant is still occupying the?
No, great distinction. Yeah, when I say active renovation, I mean that. Somebody might be living in an apartment unit in one of our communities, and we're renovating maybe the unit next to them or above them or below them while they're still living there, and making sure that it's not, that our existing residents are not living in a construction zone.
Got it. Yeah. So it's not super disruptive, but you guys are just sort of adding value, and then to bring the next tenant in, they've got kind of the new vintage units or whatever the case.
Sounds easy, and it's actually, it is an acquired skill over time to do that without totally disrupting the asset.
Yeah. So with that said, I mean, after you guys have made those investments, short of sort of those renovations, are there other things that you do that maybe others don't? Sometimes that's hard to ask, because like you don't necessarily focus more on what others are doing or aren't doing. But like, are there certain things that you really like to do when you acquire a property that are those extra little touches, or those ways that you feel like you can add value, or maybe other ways that you mitigate risk that,
Sure.
that others might overlook?
Yeah, so we'll talk about the value first and then the risk mitigation second. So on the value side, there are the things that are directly linked to value, like higher rent, lower expenses.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, we're looking at, on the rent side, we're going in and doing our own market analysis to figure out where we think a post-renovated rent would be. But then we're also applying some sophisticated rent algorithms to our properties, so that we are really kind of pushing the boundaries of what we can charge in rent, given the occupancy that's at our site. On the expense side, it's the nice part about owning a portfolio of assets that are similarly vintage and located is that we know exactly what it costs to operate an asset. So when we go into a property, it's not like we have to rely on the seller's expenses to tell us how much it's going to cost to operate it. We're going to apply our own systems. We're going to understand what real estate tax is. We're going to understand what the utilities and insurance makeup is for that given geographic area. And we have a very high degree of confidence of how much it's going to cost us to operate that particular asset. So, that helps us on the analysis side. It also mitigates our operating risk or expense risk when we're doing an investment. The same really applies to the construction side, which is we do the same renovation over and over. It's programmatic for us. So we have a very high degree of accuracy when it comes to understanding or predicting what the renovation costs are going to be for any deal that we get ourselves involved in. And then the last piece of risk for any deal is really the capitalization. And we are very conservative on capitalizations, which means we are generally looking for lower leverage, lower interest rate senior mortgages, and equity investors behind those, without any form of mezzanine or some other risk-inducing type of leverage for a particular deal.
Mm-hmm. So you guys do your own property management, or do you have third parties that you?
Nope, we run our own. So the bulk of our employees are at the property, on site, working with residents, and I would say that that's really kind of like one of the soft skills that we bring to it, as well as is we're really, really focused on customer engagement. Customers for us being the residents, customer engagement, and internal survey scores and external reviews that people are leaving for us out on generally out on the internet. That's the driver of new traffic. So we're very focused on making sure those stay high.
Yeah, well, that's great. So so besides yourself, who are the other key players on the team that kind of make, as I call it, make the magic happen?
Sure. So we're lucky. We have a great team. And really, it's kind of a two-part team. One is on the investment side. One team's on the investment side. One is on the operating side. So our investment team is really led by myself. And then we have vice presidents in charge of finance, asset management, and operations. And then the operations team is led by, there's some crossover there between operations and investment. But we have senior level people in accounting, sales and marketing, people and culture that lead those roles, and then even a director level beyond that are kind of middle level management, so that we can create some sort of that would create upward mobility throughout the organization.
So you mentioned people and culture. Maybe give us a little bit of kind of insight. And I think that the core value stuff and those things are pretty important to you as a leader. So maybe you could just speak a little bit to that and the culture at Tricap Residential.
Sure. It's actually probably the thing that we spend the most amount of time on, is creating a good culture and a cohesive team across the company. If you look at it, really, if you break down what we do as an operator, we're a customer service business, in that we are applying customer service skills to our existing residents and trying to bring new residents into that fold that happens to be centered around an asset. rather than a piece of software or something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so the real value to us as a company that we apply is our ability to have a great team and great culture and provide great sales and customer service when our people live in our communities. So I would say for a company of our size, we probably invest an inordinate amount of capital in the people and the systems that we that make that engine work. And it's the focus of what we do.
Yeah, no, I think, do you think that would be different if you guys didn't do property management?
For sure. I think that's a definite separator between us. And, I'm not going to tell you what's the right way to do things or the wrong way to do things, but this path it's clear that we've chosen to go down this path because we think it brings the most value to this type of asset. And so, we definitely think that it's a differentiator.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, thanks so much for your time. I really like hearing about your story and kind of the team and your strategy. So that's great. Thanks so much, Bryan.
Thanks, Lance. Thanks for taking the time as well.